Guys, before we start the show today, I need to just address something that I'm sure is on all your minds. It's been
Okay.
circling through the media, and it's my ability to be successful in this organization as the host, the coach, the manager, and I just need your guys' honest opinion. Put it on the table. Kieran, you're one of my oldest friends. Kieran, tell me, am I doing an okay job here as a host?
If I'm being completely honest,
Please.
I just feel like you don't prepare for the show very well. I feel like you
No,
show up sometimes, but
no, Kieran, shut up. You're done. I'm releasing you from the show. You're fired. Jared, be honest with me. We
Yeah.
get along. We're good friends. What do you think?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's a great point. Sometimes I feel like every week the show gets a little repetitive. Maybe we could bump up the creativity.
Competitive. You know what? I don't need you. You're done. You're fired. You're done. Michael, these guys are crazy, right? Tell me.
man to man,
Shut up, Mike. I'm tired of your shit, okay? You're all done. It's over. I can run this shit by myself.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Welcome into Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. This is your host, Noah Obsfeld. And as always with me is my three, guys, I think I'll just bring you back on the show. Congratulations, you're rehired. That was my best Adam Gase impression. Thank you very much. I've taken classic acting lessons for times like these. And how was my impression? Was it just spot on?
you could do a little more with the eyes,
I was thinking.
eyes, I think, honestly.
More with the eyes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
That's pretty good.
I just want to blink, and then I'll really get it right and how it's supposed to be. How are you guys doing? How's fantasy going? How's football going for you? Let me hear your vibes.
Yeah, I'll start off. I mean, the injury bug has really not been hitting me hard, to be quite honest. I've lost one player, and it's Austin Eckler, and that's about it. Everything else going smooth.
Every week, Jared comes on the same. He's the one ship that's still afloat. For me personally, I'm in 3 leagues, 2 of which I'm in with Noah. I played Noah in both of those leagues already. And I'm 2-0. So, I'm feeling pretty good. I survived A.J. Brown on Monday night. He tried to bring Noah back, but I prevailed. Yeah, I'm still digging through the mud a little bit, dealing with the old highest points scored but highest points against type of deal, which is always tough when you're the second highest scoring team on the week and you somehow lose it. So
tell me about it, man.
We're getting through those. I know.
Yeah, I'm in 6 leagues. I think it's a going great in about 2 of them and going the opposite of great in about 4 of them. And I don't know. We'll see. I've gone 0-3. I've gone 0-4 before in 1 league, and that's just the mentality you need to keep with you through these tough times. But things are stabilizing. Let's get into some fantasy news. We started off the show making fun of Adam Gase because there's, even though we all make fun of Adam Gase, everyone in the football community makes fun of him all the time. We don't do it enough, okay? So just, knock on a neighbor's door, call up your buddy, and just make sure that Adam Gase is just the butt of all jokes. And so, yeah, Le'Veon Bell released. I mean, we've had drama here in the Jets organization with these star players for years. Jamal Adams, Robbie Anderson, and Adam Gase seems to be at the fault of all these problems. But you know what? Trevor Lawrence is just that good. It's all been a plan the whole time. Just number 1 draft pick. Bring him to New York. But anyways, let's talk about this Le'Veon Bell dropping. I don't even think we need to talk about the impact on the Jets' backfield. If you're really, really desperate, go grab 5 points from Frank Gore. Otherwise, where do you guys think Le'Veon Bell will land and why?
I own Le'Veon Bell in a couple of leagues, and I certainly don't know how to feel about this. The guaranteed production or the guaranteed workload is gone, but at the same time, there was no upside there. And the hope is he finds somewhere with a little bit of upside. But
looking at the running back market and given how many decent running backs have been able to sign, the teams that were really needy kind of filled a lot of those holes. So the last place that I think he could really provide value is in Chicago. That's where I see kind of a good fit for him. They lost Tariq Cohen. They need a pass catcher. The offense needs a little bit of juice, and I think that the name alone will provide that for them.
I like that one. A couple teams I'm keeping my eye on. One that I think could really be a front runner would be the Dolphins, and that there's a lot of familiarity there. It's a young running back room. If Le'Veon Bell doesn't come in and take over Myles Gaskin, he could, be a mentor to Myles Gaskin. He's a very promising guy. I think they could work well together. And a team that I didn't really think of off the top of my head, but has been in the rumor mill with Le'Veon Bell is the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been in contact with him, and I personally, I don't know if I'm the Chiefs, I wouldn't go down this path, but I mean, they've been constantly brought up with Le'Veon Bell. In fact, Le'Veon Bell and Patrick Mahomes are following each other on some social media.
Ooh, spicy.
So it could be a thing, and it could potentially eat at Clyde Edwards-Helaire's value, but I wouldn't count out the Chiefs.
I think the thing that people are forgetting is Le'Veon Bell is not a just plug-and-play guy. This is a guy that comes with a little bit of a baggage, a little bit of tough to work with in the organizations, as we see these Steelers stars tend to do. And, I don't think that an organization like the Chiefs, even though they've heard some talk about it, is going to want someone like that shaking up a system that's just doing well. I think what Le'Veon Bell can contribute most to a team is a excellent three-down back in a place that's lost players, and that's Chicago. And, even though Chicago is not really a team that you look at and say this is a contender in terms of he went to the Jets. He's not really a guy necessarily looking for a playoff run or a Super Bowl. I mean, he's looking for some money, and I think that that's a place they lost to Cohen. I think he could slide in there along with a mediocre passing game besides, one of the best players in the league, Anthony Miller, and just kind of slide in there and be the guy they kind of wanted David Montgomery to be almost. So, and that could even be a landing spot for him. So, for a long term. So that's my thought, but honestly, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah, I think his upside is just, I feel like at most it's 9 to 10 fantasy points a game at this point. I'm not confident in that at all, and he's probably going to go somewhere that also has another back. I think the real big fantasy news of this week, though, really destroying a lot of teams, is Dak Prescott's very unfortunate injury. As Noah predicted, he would leave as the QB1, and when he left the game,
what can I say?
QB1.
Well, through his healthy weeks, and probably up to the minute he got injured, he was the QB1. So that was in my bold predictions segment. So I'm gonna take that as a win. I don't think the Cowboys' defense was gonna get any better. So thank you guys so much for your well wishes. There's a tiny little bright spot on that, but yeah, terrible injury. He's gonna be out for the season. Obviously has dynasty value, but besides that, it's gonna make a big impact on the team. We'll get into that later. No Thursday night football for this week. We are just, these games just feel like they're in a ping pong or I don't know, just crazy bouncing around. So we got 2 Monday night football games, and these are some pretty good games. We got Chiefs, Bills, and Cardinals, Cowboys, and that's gonna be a good night. Okay, I might prep a little bit of appetizers, prep a little beer too. We'll see how that goes. More big news. I mean, it's just crazy. These coaches keep getting the boot before Adam Gase, but Dan Quinn, a Super Bowl coach, fired from one of the toughest teams to watch in the NFL right now, the Atlanta Falcons. Dan Quinn fired after a long stint with them, and this team, and especially the offense, and what am I saying? The offense, both sides of the ball are in shambles. How do you guys see? I mean, we don't really know. Has it been named? Who's the interim coach? Anyways, what do you guys think of this offense going forward?
I think, unlike the Texans, where there were a lot of questions because there's a completely new play caller and you don't know what kind of system they're going to run, I feel like the system the Falcons are going to be running is basically the same, at least on offense. I don't really see any changes with who's getting the ball more. I feel like it's still going to be the Ridley show. It's going to be Julio when he comes back at some point, and Todd Gurley vulturing some touchdowns, and that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a bleak outlook for them right now. The offensive line is so bad and the defense is so bad. So, I mean, you're going to start the guys you've been starting: Ridley, Julio. Todd Gurley's surprisingly been producing value, but we'll see if that's sustainable. I don't know if the coach is going to be the end-all be-all for one of these teams, but you might see one of those big weeks when the team rallies behind the new coach and tries to make that the message of what's been happening wrong the whole season. But it's one of those things you can't predict. You kind of just have to go status quo.
Do you guys remember last year when we kept thinking that AJ Green would be back? Oh, next week he's going to be back. Oh, okay, 2 more weeks he's going to be back. And then they just kind of had him in like IR limbo the rest of the year. I have a hunch that's what's going to happen with Julio, because this isn't a team that's going to be coming for anything. We fired our coach. Our defense is terrible.
0-5.
And we have how old is Julio? 29, 30-year-old receiver who has hamstring issues. Why would we bring him back when we have Matt Ryan, who's still, a Super Bowl, we've seen it, a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, it's possible, young talent in Calvin Ridley, and a decent offense in other places.
I do have one big difference between AJ Green's situation and Julio's situation. AJ Green was in a contract year and didn't want to come back and blow it all up, versus Julio's locked up for a couple years, and Julio's been a guy who's played through injuries his whole career. I don't know if any interim coach has the power to say, Julio, you're not playing. That guy wants to get on the field and he wants to play. So, but I mean, I see where your hunch is coming from, because he's just dealt with so many and they're not playing for anything. But I wouldn't take any actionable fantasy moves with that hunch. I would take it on the fact that he's injured right now and you might need wins to manufacture wins.
Don't mess with those hammies.
Yeah, we will see about that.
Speaking of hammies, the next big news, Dalvin Cook goes down with a hammy issue. It looked like he could have went in and played, and he played like a play or two, I think, but they just took him out. And Madison, he's already been ruled out for this week. Madison's going to be the lead back in Minnesota. So obviously, if you have him, he is a running back 1 this week. Must start going forward if Dalvin Cook is out. Other big news, or excuse me, not a hammy, it was a groin. Other big news, Melvin Gordon, DUI. Last night, very unfortunate situation that they have not announced that he's playing or not.
Unfortunate.
I mean, it's just unfortunate that people do those kinds of things.
I guess, yeah.
Especially people that play for such a bad organization as the Denver Donkeys.
Geez.
Speaking of the Donkeys being bad, you know who's not bad? The Las Vegas Raiders. Sorry, just had to put that in there.
Where is this coming from?
All right. Another issue with a player, Michael Thomas supposedly got in a fight with a teammate. So obviously Michael Thomas has been out for a couple weeks. Now he has an issue on the field or on the practice field. So it'll be interesting to monitor how Sean Payton handles with that. I feel like he's a no-nonsense coach. Could be interesting to see what happens with Michael Thomas.
Yeah, some weird things happening in the NFL. And lastly, looks like Cam will be playing this week, Cam Newton for the Patriots. Let's move on. Today we're going to start off the show, or whatever point in the show we are in right now, with some trade talk. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is the point. We talked about it last week, about the quarter season crisis episode. But you need to start looking at your team and say, what do I need moving forward? Can I afford to trade for a guy like Julio because I'm 4-1 and sitting pretty atop the standings? Or, am I going to give it all up for, 5 weeks of Kareem Hunt as the RB1 of the NFL without Chubb? Figure out where you are, make moves accordingly. You can follow us on Twitter @DudesFootball. We'll give you some help there. So, guys, right now in your leagues, who are you trading for? Mike, who you got?
Well, I am in a league where I'm 5-0 and you're 1-4, and you are a Julio owner. So, I mean, we could talk trade there. But online,
shouldn't have said that stuff about Julio earlier.
Is just a non-name brand who just produces, and I know everyone on this show loves him. It's Jamison Crowder. He's the only wide receiver now. He's only played 3 games that has double-digit targets in every game. He has 29 catches on the year. Or I think that's a little high, maybe over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 games. Like he's a wide receiver too. you should be starting him if he is on your team. That is a guy that is just going to get a ton of volume. There's no one else in New York to catch the ball. I think Jamison Crowder is a guy that if you own Jamison Crowder, you probably don't value him as highly as you should. I think that's a guy you could go get.
Yeah, I like that. For me, I'm targeting Jerry Jeudy right now. So Drew Lock looks like he's going to be back this week. The Broncos' offense is obviously, we have Fan injured. We have Gordon out with DUI. But Jerry Jeudy is one of these, is one of these amazing rookie wide receivers. We're seeing so many of them right now. And I think he comes here and has a really good second half of the season. Cortland Sutton last year started off a little slow, came out booming in the second half of the season, and he's not there. They need a guy to step up. They're going to be behind in games. Jerry Jeudy is going to have a great second half of the season. My other guy I want to trade for right now is James White. James White, another really complicated beginning of the season. His father passed away. He missed 2 games for that. Came back and was the primary receiving back for the Patriots. And it looks like that he's going to be in that role going forward as well. We saw Rex Burkhead pop out. That's going to scare some people from James White. In our Dynasty League today, he was dropped. I went and scrolled to see if he was picked up. He was. I cried a single tear for James White. People don't believe in him, but he's going to come in. He's going to fill that PPR role. This is probably a PPR-only trade for because he's just such an edge in that scoring. But I really like James White going forward, a really stable PPR floor.
I can see that being a stable source for points going through this season. My guy,
thanks, Kieran,
a little bit higher up in the rankings. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A lot of people expected him to come out of the gates firing like he did in week 1 and just be a top 5 solid running back going throughout the season. And I think there is a decent probability that he will do that going forward, but he hasn't yet. The touchdowns haven't come his way. Last week, very mediocre week for him. If the owners of Clyde Edwards-Helaire are, a little bit flustered, maybe haven't won the amount of games they need to be in this, and they're in a wacky situation, and they're scared about Le'Veon Bell potentially joining the team, I think you can jump on that and get Clyde for, less than his actual value. And I think he's one of those, you see it all the time where rookies come through in the second half of the year and really find their own. And I think he's one of those guys who Patrick Mahomes loves. He fits the system. It just takes a while for the fit for him to fit in because they had no preseason. So I think I would try and go out and get him wherever I could.
7 carries inside the 5, no touchdowns this year for Clyde.
Jeez.
One of those regression stats.
Let's get into some candidates you're looking to trade away.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I feel like we've all been talking about we've waited for Todd Gurley to have his big game before trading him away. And he's had some decent games. And I feel like now is kind of your last chance to fully get rid of him because not only is the injury concern always there with Todd Gurley, but he's very touchdown dependent. And sometimes I feel like watching Brian Hill, he's the better back in some ways. He's very explosive compared to Todd Gurley, who kind of just –
What do you want, Todd Gurley or Antonio Gibson?
Todd Gurley, just because the Washington offense is so bad. And then another quick one, Devonta Freeman. He had a very good game against the Cowboys. The Cowboys' defense is garbage. And they play the Cowboys again, but that's not till week 17, which is not in your fantasy schedule. And the Giants do not have an easy schedule for running backs going forward. So if you can pawn off Devonta Freeman now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. My guys, I got 2 right here. First is Kenyon Drake. We keep saying this guy's going to score. And even though Kenyon Drake is getting this volume, I'm kind of scared. I mean, we don't know where Le'Veon's going to land, but I'm kind of scared he's going to land there because I have him in one league. I'm looking to trade him away. I'm even thinking about – what do you guys think about this one? Trading for David Montgomery. I think the Bears have had a tough schedule. They're opening up a little bit, have a great playoff schedule, and I'm worried about Drake. What do you guys think about that one?
I love that.
Loves it.
I'd do that.
Ooh,
I think David Montgomery's going to be a stud in the second half of the year.
Wow. Well, we'll see where Le'Veon lands. My second guy I want to trade away is Le'Veon Bell. Speak of the devil. We don't know where he's going, and if someone is, oh my God, where's Le'Veon Bell going to land? He's going to be just like he was on the Steelers. I think he's a great trade away candidate. He's had a few years in a weird place. He's not going to be the same guy immediately. He's going to take time to learn the system, etc. We don't really know, if he's the same guy anymore, age-wise or health-wise. And it's just too much risk there. So if you can get that name value and the, what-if jackpot potential for a trade, how about, can I ask this one? Who do you guys want more rest of season right now without knowing where Le'Veon Bell is?
Not Le'Veon. Anybody but Le'Veon.
Between my two trade candidates, Le'Veon Bell or Kenyon Drake?
Drake.
Kenyon Drake.
Kenyon Drake.
Okay. Sometimes I ask you guys questions just to make sure I don't have to Le'Veon Bell you from the show. Okay. Excellent. Mike, you got one more for us.
Yeah, and it may surprise a few people here. James Robinson. And it's a guy that I love. I love watching him play football. He's a really good running back. He looks good out there. Unfortunately, as much as we don't like to talk about it, fantasy football is a very game script-driven sport. And James Robinson or the Jags in general, have a very brutal second half of the schedule. It includes the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bears, the Colts again, who will definitely be better when the Jags play them again. And Jay Gruden said he wants James Robinson to get more second half carries, but if the Jags are down 10 plus points, they're not just going to feed James Robinson. They haven't. In the games that they've been blown out, he's had 11 and 13 carries. So I just think James Robinson, he's a great story. If you have him, chances are you have decent running backs and you can afford trading him away. I think he's a guy that he may disappoint in the playoffs because he plays the Ravens, the Bears, the Colts, the Browns, the Steelers. It's a very tough second half schedule where the Jags are going to be throwing the ball, and they throw it well, and Jay Gruden likes to throw the ball. So I think James Robinson could be a bit of a disappointment in the second half of the year.
Yeah, interesting. And, I mean, that's going to be a tough one because he's an RB1, clearly, but it's going to be tough to get value for him with the name. So we'll see how that goes. Let's get into Week 6 football. Starting off with the Texans versus the Titans. And originally, guys, the intro was going to be about my guy, Brandon Cooks. And then I got they all said, no, you can't. But I was going to talk about all the things that Brandon Cooks was making in the kitchen and how it just smelled so good. And this has been another roller coaster pick for Noah. I mean, what? 12 targets, 8 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown? What do you guys think? I mean, I love his value going forward, obviously. This is music to my ears. Is he legit?
Brandon Cooks is taking a book out of none other than Will Fuller's playbook. He's literally saying, man, I'm in the same locker room with you. I'm going to take a couple of your tricks, going 0 points on 3 targets last week and then going 12 targets, 8 catches, 161 and a tud. It's like, it's only in this offense that I feel like that type of explosion happens to, a fantasy asset that's somewhat like someone who's actually talented, not one of those players just booms out of nowhere. So, I mean, that's exactly who it reminded me of. And I think I don't know what to make of it, but I think both of them, they're one of those where if you believe in it, you got to play it and you're going to get your booms and you're going to get your busts.
Yeah.
4 letters, Jags. The Jags will make anyone look good. I get Brandon Cooks. He's very talented. He will have games like these. He's a Michael Gallup that has a lower floor and potentially even a higher ceiling. He'll have games like this, but it's the Jags. They'll make anyone look good.
I like that comparison. The only thing that is redeeming is this is the first game without Bill O'Brien, and it should be a clear picture of the offense going forward. So I do agree with you guys. I don't think he's like a stable – I would say he's probably a low-end mid wide receiver 3 right now. But I like him going forward. On the other side of the ball, A.J. Brown, back in action after so many weeks of being out. Oh, my God, that was stressful. Had this incredible first half. I think the first Titans play of the game was just an easy drop into A.J. Brown's bread box, and he scored. And Tannehill looking like – a high-end QB1. I mean, that offense is chugging. And it proves once and for all, you don't need to practice. I mean, just give the rest of COVID.
Let's hear it, Mike.
Rest all your boys.
Since he's taken over, he literally has the best quarterback rating in the NFL, higher than Patrick Mahomes. And I always like
Mike, let's hear it.
When I said he was better than Kirk Cousins, who was like the most average quarterback, and Noah dropped F-bombs over me. I'd rather have Ryan Tannehill than Kirk Cousins.
Mike, tell us how you really feel, man.
I just did.
Yeah, I mean, Tannehill looks like a great value right now. I was a little confused in the beginning of the season why he wasn't even being drafted. And here we are, looking like a QB1. Awesome. Derrick Henry, good at football.
It's pretty. We can pretty much.
Not much to be said. I think if Corey Davis misses more time, Jonnu and A.J. Brown are going to be studs still. A matchup I think may be interesting this week. The Eagles played the Steelers tough last week. Now they get the Ravens, I guess the supposed kings of the AFC North. And I feel like the biggest storyline out of the Ravens this year has been Lamar hasn't continued his growth last year as a passer. He looked really improved last year as a passer. This year, not so much. He's been very inconsistent. He's missed Hollywood numerous times, unexpected touchdowns, which I guess when you drafted Hollywood, you expected that to happen. Probably not as much as it has. Although Marquise did score, it was towards the goal line, in a goal line situation this week. But I think Lamar Jackson's ceiling may not be as high as it was last year if he doesn't figure out how to pass. Because he had games where he threw 3, 4, 5 touchdown passes in the air. A lot of his points were coming through the air. So something interesting to monitor. On the Eagles side of the ball, Travis Fulgham.
Woo!
Legit. I mean, he had 13 targets. He had 10 catches, over 150 yards and a touchdown. 2 weeks in a row, he's actually looked pretty good. And he's probably going to be one of the first guys taken on the waiver wire, him and Chase Claypool. I mean, if all those guys are still hurt, I think you could start him if your wide receiver core is banged up, because Zach Ertz looks
terrible,
like he's not even there. We clowned about him last week. He had 4 catches for 9 yards 2 weeks ago. This week, on 6 targets, 1 catch for 6 yards. He looks bad. And then Carson Wentz, he at times has looked really bad. He's made very bad mistakes, but he's been somewhat of a stable quarterback. He's put up close to 20 points a game over this year. So, I don't necessarily think I'd be rushing to start him this week against the Ravens, but if they're down, they're going to have to throw the ball. He's been somewhat competent.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Ertz was someone I was going to touch on earlier. He looks bad. Wentz doesn't look very good throwing the ball at all either. And these were in game scripts where they're coming from behind and they're losing and they need to throw. And Zach Ertz still isn't getting open. So it's one of those guys where 3 years ago, Kieran, who wasn't as invested in fantasy football, would have seen Zach Ertz. Like, say this week he goes out for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns randomly, but the skill set and what you see on the screen doesn't look good. 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh, I'm going to trade low for him. So I advise you guys as fantasy players out there who are listening to a fantasy football show, you probably know better. If he has a blow up week, I'm hopping on and trading him as hard as I can, anywhere I can. Try and, get a different tight end, which probably isn't as likely, or try and get one of those running backs for depth, because I feel like that's more likely. And even if you can get Dallas Goedert off the waiver wires, I think he could probably fill the void and even perform better going forward.
Yeah.
100% agree there.
I agree.
All right, moving on. Falcons versus Vikings. Matt Ryan, we touched on the Falcons earlier. Matt Ryan does not look very good.
Can I leave during this segment? I don't want to hear about the Falcons anymore ever again. They've just ruined me.
One quick thing, Hayden Hurst. He had 6 targets, but at this point he's probably droppable moving forward, especially if you're in a 10 team, probably if you're in a 12 team. There's a lot of better upside out there. The Vikings, I think the main story with the Vikings, besides Dalvin Cook going down, is Justin Jefferson doesn't have that big of a game. Obviously, you still want to have him, but Adam Thielen is 100% the guy there. 13 targets this past week, 90 yards. Keeps scoring touchdowns. You love to see it. Hope he can stay healthy. Kirk Cousins is still not that good, but, they looked better, I guess. It is the Seahawks defense, so anybody.
I was waiting for the Vikings to take that play-action deep shot to Justin Jefferson, and they just didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
I think he'll have better days in the future. I may honestly disagree with that Hayden Hurst in that I think he's worth holding on to, because the Falcons have been targeting him relatively deep down the field too. I think he could become a bigger part of that offense in the second half of the year. And while tight end has a bunch of guys that you can just plug and play and get like 5 to 6 points or 7 points, it's not as deep as we expected. There's that just middle tier of just a bunch of guys that are there that haven't really been consistently performing. And I think Hayden Hurst could potentially break out at some point. But if it's a shallow league, like a 10-team league, I think you can definitely move on.
Even in this game this week, Matt Ryan missed him wide open down the seam for a 30-yard touchdown. That would have won me my fantasy week. But also, it's just like in this tight end landscape, a 3 for 40 and a touchdown is a great week. That's, 11 and a half points. So, that's the thing with some of these guys. You kind of got to go with what you think talent-wise. If you believe that the Falcons are going to turn it around and become that passing offense they've been, then he's going to be relevant. It's just a matter of you believe this offense is going to turn it around. And right now, I don't see the signs from previous years that that's actually going to really happen.
Yeah. I mean, with Julio out too, I mean, that's more targets for Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst. So who knows?
What do you guys think about the quarterback situations here between Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan? Who would you start in this situation? Is it an easy Kirk Cousins, or do you think, Matt Ryan's got the weapons? What do you guys think?
Easy, Kirk.
Kirk?
I think both.
I'm going Matt Ryan.
What?
I don't think either of these.
Knock that on the wall. What do you mean, man?
Neither of these defenses are good at all. And you saw what Alexander Madison can do. Todd Gurley's not going to replicate that. So the Falcons are going to have to throw to stay in this game.
Oh, it doesn't make my life easy. That was a totally selfish question, but let's move on. We're looking at the Browns and the Steelers this week. This is a battle.
Ooh.
I think more importantly than the football game is a battle of Myles Garrett playing against the Steelers again after ending his season last year. So we'll see if there's some flames on the football field. I'm excited to watch this one. And the Browns look like a different team this year. Not to say that they're some sort of playoff contender or some sort of Super Bowl contender, but they look good, and they're going to want to come out and prove it. With Kareem Hunt, 20 carries last week, looks electric, looks really good. That catch he had in the end zone looked like he was floating. He's just a supremely talented player. And then we kind of get to see, the ramifications of last week's Chase Claypool's 4 touchdown performance.
Yeah.
I think a lot
Can
of
we
people
get a little
are
bit
going to
into
go
that?
heavy chasing. Yeah, let's get into it. I think a lot of people are going to go heavy chasing those points. And what are your guys' thoughts on, Deontay Johnson was knocked out of the game early. Yeah. Juju's still there. James Conner's there. Ebron's there. What do you guys think about – and James Washington had more routes run than Claypool did last week.
So you can't score 4 touchdowns in a game on accident. That's the first thing I got to say, okay? I mean, we've seen these huge one-and-done games. Claypool's a rookie. He's not a no-name. And I think what this says more than anything is because you're going to get your Deontay Johnson weeks. I think Juju's going to be the middle of the pack guy. Claypool's going to have another 2 big weeks. Deontay Johnson have another 2 big weeks. But I think the main thing is that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a nice QB1 going forward. He has more serious weapons in this offense than we realized. James Conner is great out of the backfield. Benny Snell is stepping up. I think that the Pittsburgh offense, and more importantly, the defense isn't looking as good as we thought. We thought this was that number 1 shutdown defense. We just saw Carson Wentz and let me check my notes. Travis Fulgham go off against the Steelers. I mean, what did they score? Like 38? It was crazy. Yeah. So I love Ben Roethlisberger going forward. Claypool got to be rostered. If you're doing fab, I think 25. Is that too much? 25% of your remaining budget. And I think Claypool is going to be a legit guy. I think I would put him up a step above the Michael Gallup of Dak Prescott even.
Yeah.
I think if Deontay misses a game, Claypool's an obvious start. I do think a lot of what Claypool did was because of Deontay being hurt.
Which is what we saw, yeah.
We need to shout out the Steelers, though, because they have drafted these wide receivers over the last decade, and neither of them in the first round. None of them. Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Juju, Claypool, Martavis Bryant, Deontay Johnson, and James Washington. None of them in the first round. They've been the kings of –
Does James Washington belong in that list?
He's a serviceable wide receiver.
I'm reading Mr. List over here.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if James Washington's in that what a value pick. But nonetheless, you're right. We do need to give Steelers credit there. Ebron, I think he's a drop. Like if he couldn't do this past week, get him off your team. Bengals versus the Colts. The Bengals, after it looked like Joe Burrow might be this rookie that can hang, basically shut out by the Ravens and AJ Green. Done.
Yeah. Is he droppable? Let's get that out of the way.
Yes, done. Droppable. There's nothing else to say.
For sure.
I would drop him in maybe even 14 team.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah,
he's
I
not
think
doing
so. Done,
anything.
done.
I can't
Not
believe
doing
he was
anything.
drafted with Tyler Boyd this year. I still can't believe that happened.
I can't
He
believe
wasn't
I made
drafted
him
with
one
Tyler
of
Boyd.
my guys. I feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
You guys said you have to have
Mixon-
4, and I tossed him on there at the end of the last minute nominating. All my
Yeah, well,
credibility.
that's a rookie mistake, man. And similar to the ones that Joe Burrow makes when he throws it to him. Oh, Mixon.
Yeah, let's talk
Mixon.
about Mixon. That's what I want to talk about real quick.
Yeah,
Joe
let's hear it,
Mixon
Jared.
last week against the Ravens had 24 carries against the Ravens. So this is a game where they're not winning, and he still had 24 carries, and he had 8 targets and
Who was
6
it against?
catches. The Ravens. Isn't
Who?
this what we were talking about when we were talking about Joe Mixon at the beginning of the year? Is he going to get targeted? Is he going to get catches? And the past 2 weeks, he's had 6 catches in both games the past 2 weeks, and he still had 24 carries this past week.
Does it matter if they can't get in the red zone?
He had a
Definitely
solid
matters.
week.
It definitely matters.
It matters.
I mean, the big thing that really made me happy was they were down big in the fourth quarter, and the coach was still feeding him the ball, and it wasn't the Gio Bernard show. And that was what was so worrisome throughout the first couple weeks was Gio was getting so much playing time and so much third down work, and they've really just targeted him. 8 targets. I mean, that's the fantasy gold you're looking for. He showed you he can break plays against bad defenses, and eventually they're going to get goal line opportunities. But if he's that involved, you love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And we got Jonathan Taylor on the other side of the ball, 1.2 yards after contact right now through the season, which is the opposite of what we thought he was going to be in the NFL. I mean, we saw him at Wisconsin bouncing off everybody, leaving guys in the dirt. And even though he was, I know me and Mike's one of our top guys in the beginning of the season just because of that college talent and this Colts O-line, I'm going to officially say I'm kind of off of it right now. Listen. Okay, I think he could come through. I think the offense could get better. Phillip Rivers is not going to get any younger all of a sudden. They could increase the volume, and that might create some more breakout runs. He's still a low-end RB1, maybe high-end RB2, but in terms of what we really wish he was going to be this year, I'm kind of off the wagon there.
I'm with you. He was my dud of the week last week, and
You did
it's
good.
mainly because what I saw from him was not this 20-plus carries a game and this electric looking back out of the backfield.
Mike, you're shaking your head.
I just think he's the most – he may not look great out there. He's by far the most talented running back in the running back room. And I think very importantly, the offensive coordinator came out and said that was flat out the best game that he's played so far last week. And I think they're going to start to believe in him more and more and more. And you look at his postseason schedule, he plays the Raiders and Texans in the weeks 14 and 15. And I will take that all day. I just think he's going to get ramped up more and more and more with the second half of the year. I don't think you can sell him for proper value if you're an owner. And I wouldn't necessarily be – I mean, I would be trying to buy him. I think owners value him a lot, like very much so. But I'm not off him like you are, Noah.
Yeah, that offense is just too stagnant.
A matchup that has very serious implications on this show, not necessarily fantasy-wise, although there could be some very good games fantasy-wise. The Lions and the Jaguars. Probably top 5 picks, let's be honest.
Showdown of Titans out here.
Both these teams have one win
not
this
Titans,
year.
big teams.
Laviska Shenault looked good last week. He looks good on the year. He had 7 catches for 79 yards. He's a stud. He's going to go off against this horrid Lions secondary. I think a secondary that may be worse is the Jaguars secondary. I think Kenny Galladay's in for a huge game. I think this is a good week for running backs because I think it's going to be a relatively close game and they're going to be more involved in the game script. So I think this is a week where James Robinson has a very good game and inflates his value. And Adrian Peterson, I guess, is the guy in Detroit for some reason. Can DeAndre Swift get the ball? It's like this is the week. If he's get the ball, it'd be this week. I think you could play Stafford. You could play Minshew.
Definitely.
And honestly, not be scared that they're going to dud.
Would you rather play Matthew Stafford or Matt Ryan?
Stafford.
Stafford.
For sure.
Great.
You're
There we
welcome
go.
again, Kieran. This is just he supplemented it and texting his friends and getting embarrassed by just asking us during the show. That's great multitasking. Two birds with one stone. Hey, Kieran, I love those questions in the show today. That was great thinking, man. Just getting those fans involved. Anyways, yeah. I like everything you said. I think this could be a really big shootout here. I think.
Yeah, Minshew had 49 pass attempts last week. Besides week 1, they've been throwing the ball a ton, and there's a ton of targets. So I think Minshew.
We got to not to digress here. We got to the 3-yard line.
Threw the ball.
And we threw the ball 4 straight times.
Colin Johnson.
Colin Johnson did catch it
Colin.
for his first touchdown. But, like, you have James Robinson, who's supposed to be the workhorse. We're trying to get him more touches, and Jay Gruden doesn't give him the ball once.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That was a weird possession for sure.
Moving on. Bears and Panthers. It looks like, CMC's not practicing still. Mike Davis is like the RB1 since CMC went down. But this could be either this week or next week. It could be his last game as the full-time starter. His role coming back, this is something I have absolutely no idea how to put any input in on this. Because he's been so good. They've been winning. And if anything, I think all this does is elevate CMC's value because now that they're winning, there's actually a role for him to come back into. Whereas if they looked as bad as they did week 1, maybe they wouldn't have brought CMC back so soon. But now CMC's coming back to a team that's winning ball games. What do you guys think?
I have a question before we get into that. Are the Panthers better without Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah.
I think it makes them less predictable. I think it makes them less predictable. Like, yes, Mike Davis
interesting
a lot, but you
I
don't
think
know
I think they'll be able to figure it out. I think they've learned a lot without McCaffrey. But everyone's saying it's crazy. Mike Davis is not going to have a role. CMC's going to come back in and just take over. And honestly, I don't think so. Like, why would they? Mike Davis looks like an RB, like the starter on most teams. I think CMC's obviously still going to be like a top 3-4 guy, but I think his like unseen ceiling that we just haven't seen it. We always hear a combination of running back and receiver. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think he's going to be a great running back. That's what I think he's going to be great. But
would you rather have Zeke and Kamara, and then he's probably 3 when all fully healthy?
I'd probably go. Yeah, I think so.
With Andy Dalton, I got to take Zeke because I feel like
we'll get into
Dak
Zeke
steals all those rushing
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, the main thing with this though is I feel like Teddy Bridgewater's fully settled into the offense, and he looks like an amazing quarterback. I feel like you could start him any week. And Robbie Anderson, come on, wide receiver 1 moving forward. What do we think?
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Just gets so targeted. Yeah, I think he's the wide receiver 1 on that team for sure.
Yeah, here's a question I have, and this is also kind of taking a card out of Kieran's playbook here. What is DJ Moore's dynasty value? What are you doing with him if you own him in dynasty? Because he was such a big name. Everyone was so high on him last year and this year for a long-term play. But, I mean, he likes Robbie.
I don't think you do anything with him right now. I don't think his value is as high as it'll be at any point. And I don't think it can get, a lot lower. He's so talented and he can make the deep threat. And you saw last week, one play and you have a good fantasy day. If he strings that together a couple of times, I think you can get a lot more value. So I wouldn't be selling, but at the same time, you're not, jumping up and down like you were before the season thinking you had the next best thing.
It's tough. It's tough out here.
Yeah. I think the last thing about this matchup is just Allen Robinson is a target machine, and we all should pour one out for him because it's just so hard to watch him play with these quarterbacks over and over and over again. But
it's literally the same thing
at the end of the day
last year.
Yeah, we've said it every week. He's got the most targets in the NFL. He's always open, and when he's not open, he still makes the catch. He's just a great wide receiver, and I hope he gets his money. Moving on, a matchup that is not as exciting as some others, but I think will be a good matchup for fantasy is the Washington football team versus the Giants. Both these defenses are horrendous, and I think wide receivers are at play here. Devonta Freeman looked okay. I mean, the Washington front is pretty strong, so you'd have to be in pretty dire straits to play him. It looks like Kyle Allen will be back as the starting quarterback this week, which I think does help out both Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. Mike said last week Terry McLaurin is matchup proof, but we saw 7 targets, 3 catches, and 26 yards. But I will give Mike a little bit of a free pass there. They had 2 different quarterbacks. They were playing, against Aaron Donald, who is just,
Ramsey.
coming downhill every play. So I don't know about that. What do you guys think about the options in this game?
Yeah, just want to touch on one thing. Slate and Noah predicted would go off, and he had 8 catches for 129 yards.
Thank you.
And a touchdown called back.
And a
Thank you.
Love to see it.
I think a name that not a lot of people know, J.D. McKissick he gets in half PPR leagues like 6 points a game, which in the running back market right now, if you're really dire, you could play him. And I think if Alex Smith plays, I think he's just going to be dumping it off to him, and he looks good when he gets the ball. He had 6 catches last week. Could be a name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up in terms of the only thing that scares me a little bit there was when Kyle Allen was in, Antonio Gibson had 5 catches in the first 2 drives. And then the second Alex Smith came in, it just became the McKissick show. It might be one of those things where they just started been on the second team together. They have that camaraderie. So I wouldn't be buying into J.D. McKissick. I would be buying more in Antonio Gibson. But I see what you're saying there for sure.
There's still just so much volume for Antonio. Going forward, Broncos-Patriots, a game that was supposed to happen this past week and has been moved to this coming Sunday. So we have a lot of moving parts here. Drew Lock looking to return. We're not sure about Noah Fant. Looks like he's gonna play, and then Melvin Gordon's gonna be out. We have Philip Lindsay coming back. Just too many moving pieces for the Broncos against the Patriots, and I'm really worried about anyone on the Broncos this week. I mean, are you starting Judy?
Philip Lindsay?
Lindsay? No, I'm not starting anyone. I love the Patriots defense this week with these moving parts. And then Cam, you're starting. And then we've had a little bit of a clear picture in the backfield for the Patriots. I talked about James White earlier as a great PPR guy. And then Damian Harris, I think if he gets another one of these 17 carry, 15 carry games with maybe, 0 or 1 target, ship him off, because even, 17 carries for 100 yards last week, 100 rushing yards, so good, 10 points. It doesn't mean much if you're not involved on the running and the passing game. So I think that's going to be a sell high if he does that again. And really, I don't think there's anything else to say for this one.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see when they do get to the goal line. We obviously know Cam's a big factor, but if Damian Harris is a bigger back, if they lean more on him than they have.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a wait and see week, I think.
For sure, without a doubt. A matchup that I guess has intrigue, and every time Adam Gase gets on the field, I mean, you want to see what he comes up with that week. So Jets and Dolphins, so a little bit of familiarity between those teams. We talked about Jamison Crowder. He's probably the only Jet that should be rostered. I'd be interested to see how P. Ryan and Gore do. I'm interested just to see if P. Ryan looks good. He should be getting more touches, but even if he looks good, it's the Jets. He doesn't have much upside. And then on the Dolphins side of the ball, Myles Gaskin looks really good. He's been getting more and more involved in the offense, and I think this could be a really big week for him. Devontae Parker could have another good week as well, but other than that, there's not much in the way of real startable players in this matchup. The Dolphins defense, though, could be a very good play this week.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to say I think it's been just pushed under the rug for far too long that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a really good fantasy quarterback for a year now. And it's not even fluky at this point. He's actually just really good at scoring fantasy points. He runs the ball, he dives head first, he yells and screams, and he throws touchdowns. That's all he does. It's he is a valuable fantasy player, a great DFS play, as you'll hear later in the show. So I just think if you're in a pinch and you're starting one of these guys like Matt Ryan or whatever, and you're just pissed off, throw Ryan Fitzpatrick in your lineup, root for something that'll give you a big smile on your face and a ton of fantasy points.
Who would have had him being benched or not having been benched, and Jimmy Garoppolo would be benched?
That's
Who would have expected?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, we'll get into that shortly, yeah.
All right. Packers and Bucks. This honestly is probably the best matchup of the week,
I love
just
it.
in terms of Rodgers versus Brady. A little injury news: Devontae Adams a full participant. Leonard Fournette was active last game. He'll probably be back this game, so that takes a little bit away from Rojo. And Mike Evans did not practice, even though the game was on Thursday last week. So that's something to keep an eye on. And so one thing with the Bucks that I like is Cameron Brate. With O.J. Howard out, if Mike Evans doesn't play, Mike Evans has scored a touchdown in every game this week, and most of them on 1-yard fades. Cameron Brate is a great red zone target. So if Mike Evans isn't playing, O.J. Howard's out, like I said, Cameron Brate, he had 5 catches last week.
And he went to Harvard. I think.
Just like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean,
Is this the Sunday night game? This better be the Sunday night game, right?
Oh, it
It's
has
Rams and 49ers Sunday Night Football.
Oh, God. NFL keeps screwing it up. Okay, talking about the Rams and 49ers, I don't think we need to say more about the Packers and the Bucks. You know to start there. The Rams backfield continues its roller coaster ride. Darrell Henderson, 15 carries. Cam Akers, 9. Brown, 8. It's one of those things it's going to be tough. I mean, what do you guys think? Is Henderson – do you just play Henderson and nobody else and hope that it's that week?
Yeah, right now. That's what he had 2 touchdowns, one in the air, one on the ground. So
I mean, he did not look very good except for on his 2 touchdown plays, and that's, the Rams offense has looked good throughout the year except for that one game against the Giants. Both pass catchers, fire him up. They're low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2s. And this 49ers team,
wow.
I got to give you props. This is looking kind of like a breakdown and a meltdown. I mean,
Thanks.
I understand there's all these injuries. What's going on?
I mean, Garoppolo could only, trick people with his looks for so long. And, I mean, it's just kind of like a stumper because there's not that much changing. They had a lot of injuries last year throughout the season. They figured it out. I think it's that it's the start of the season. Kittle, Debo, the running back room, Garoppolo, just everybody, and I think they're gonna get better. I mean, the coaching is so good there. They've literally designed a new offense, like in a passing-centric game, and I think they're going to come back and be all right, but obviously not the same Super Bowl caliber team we saw last year. McKinnon, I think, is kind of a buy low actually right now because, I mean, he had just nothing last week, and it just was a crazy game script. They were blown out right from the get-go, and I think if someone's, I think McKinnon probably dropped in a few leagues this week, so I think they'll grab him. They're going to still, be leaning on that 2 running back set, and I'm worried about, Kittle. I'm worried about Debo. If the quarterback situation can't get solid there, we'll see. Moving on, Chiefs, Bills. Ooh, baby, is this going to be a good one? Chiefs, Watkins could miss a week or 2. You could start Miko. This could be a high-scoring game because so he get a touchdown. I think that's a good call. And then the Bills. I mean, last night just crumbled. I mean, they started off the first 2 drives. I was like, Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the league. He had 3 third and long first downs. He was so comfortable. He had an interception off of one of his guys' fingertips, and then he had his first real interception of the season later that game. But he has been phenomenal. I think he's just too stubborn and too Wyoming to let it hold him back. He's going to come out, Chiefs are going to win this game, but they're going to put up a fight. And Diggs, geez, man. Another bold prediction. Diggs, wide receiver, 1, top 10 for Noah. Look at that. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, Diggs
Another landing spot for Le'Veon, by the way.
Yeah, and Diggs is on pace for over 160 targets this year. Last year he had 94
10
targets.
Guys. There's 10 guys who are going to break the record this year.
Yeah, he had
crazy.
16. He had 16 or 17 targets last week. So I mean, you fire him up, and you should be ecstatic at where you got to draft him.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Why was he drafted so late? It's so weird.
I mean, dude, you haven't seen a quarterback like Josh Allen turn his career just like on its
He was
head.
the number
Like,
7 quarterback last year.
no, it's not. But
That's
it's
not
not
the
about his
passing
fantasy
aspect.
productivity. It's about the fact that he was airmailing people deep last year. His completion
Yeah.
percentage was like 53%, and this year it's
Yeah.
like 68 or 69. He's taken this huge leap, and he's not only Diggs was coming in. Maybe they're going to throw it deep. They're using Diggs like an absolute wide receiver 1 everywhere on the field, short, medium, and long, and that's what I think surprised everyone.
Literally. So he played in 16 games last year, right? He threw for 3,089 yards. He's already thrown for over half of that in 5 games. He's made an incredible leap as a passer, and that's why I was concerned about Diggs, because John Brown would also get the ball, Cole Beasley. We got the whole – there's a lot of weapons there. But, I mean, Diggs just – as long as Josh Allen's slinging it, Stephon Diggs is going to be great. I think one thing that shouldn't go unnoticed real quick is Devin Singletary just – no pun intended, fumbled the bag in terms of having the opportunity to take this backfield with Zach Moss still being out. 11 carries, 25 yards. I get the game script was not in his favor. It was the Titans who have a good defense, but Devin Singletary hasn't really taken control of that backfield yet, and it's probably
could be a spot for Le'Veon.
It could be. And to wrap up this week, we got the Cardinals versus the Cowboys.
Yeehaw.
We touched on Kenyon Drake earlier. Scored finally on all those touches, although Chase Edmonds usually had been getting about a third of the snaps, spiked to 45% last week. Kenyon still got 67% of the snaps, so they had them in there a couple of times at the same time, which is an interesting look. I think it's hard to really trust either of them. Chase Edmonds obviously got a touchdown last week, and if you played him, was a great play. I wouldn't bank on him having that production every week. But like we mentioned, Kenyon Drake it's hard to trust him right now.
Very worried about him.
The other side of the ball, for the Cowboys and all their weapons, I'm going to go through how I feel about them, and I want to hear y'all's take. I think CeeDee Lamb could probably be the biggest beneficiary from Andy Dalton starting. He can't push the ball down the field quite as well as Dak, and I think CeeDee could be kind of a Tyler Boyd in terms of how he operates in the slot. I think Gallup's ceiling is lowered significantly. I think Amari's ceiling might be lowered a little bit in that he won't be getting the ball downfield as much, although he's been operating underneath a lot this year. And I think the biggest thing I'm looking out for is to see how much Zeke is utilized in the passing game, because he had a game where he had like 12 targets. And Dak was extremely comfortable when they were operating from behind, just dumping it down to Zeke. He would get 7 to 10 yards. If Andy Dalton doesn't do that, that may lower Zeke's ceiling as well, although they are going to rely on him heavily in the run game.
See, I'm not really worried about Zeke. I think that
– I want to see, if you're in a PPR league, if he's as used in the passing game. And then I think Dalton Schultz gets lowered significantly because, I think he could potentially become a safety net for Andy Dalton, but I think Zeke and CeeDee being there will probably take precedence over Dalton Schultz. So I think
if you guys saw the end of the game, Andy Dalton looked good. I mean, he won this game for the Cowboys. Last drive of the game, they needed to get the ball down. It was tied. They needed to get the ball down the field, and Michael Gallup just made 2 incredible catches down the right sideline. I mean, unbelievable catches. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't a bigger deal around the league. And perfect throws too. So, I mean, I feel like the gut feeling is take the third guy or the fourth guy, Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup, and throw him out. But Michael Gallup looked great with him. But, yeah, I think Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb become possession guys. And Andy Dalton, I mean, I think he could even be a low-end QB1. I mean, the firepower in this offense is too big. There's too much. And he was a high-end QB2 back in the day when he was with a far inferior offense. I think he steps in Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Zeke, Schultz. He'll be rostered on every team by the end of the season. Just watch and see.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. All right. Again, if you're just with us, I don't know how that'd be possible, but this is Dudes Football. You can follow us on Twitter at Dudes Football. Last week, Dude of the Week, I hit it with Darius Slayton. David Johnson had the yardage, just couldn't find the end zone. DK Metcalf was not a good dude, but Jared with his said, quote, top scorer of the week, which he did good.
He was
Fifth. Yeah, did good, fifth. And then another baffler for Dude of the Week, Justin Jefferson against the worst passing defense in the league. Don't know how that one happened either, Kieran. Dud of the Week, I had Miles Sanders, who had an incredible week, bad. Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns, a great week. He's the number 2 tight end in the season. Bad. JT, Jonathan Taylor, that's a good one. And Kieran's double-doubles, Devin Singletary and Joe Burrow, 2 excellent duds. Great job,
And
boys.
to be fair in your favor, Noah, Miles Sanders had a 75-yard touchdown run, and he had, I think, 11 other carries for 4 yards combined. So if he didn't have that huge, and he had another touchdown. So it's like, the thought process was there.
If you just take 75 yards and a touchdown off him, he's terrible. It's amazing.
Exactly.
And then I'm great. It's fantastic. So let's get into
the
this
thought process.
No, you're right. But thought process was there. Let's get into this week. My dude of the week. I've been talking to him. I wish I could talk to him. I've been talking about him all episode. James White. Denver is going to be just a boring game. I'm sorry, everybody. Dink, dunk. James White says, thank you. I'm going to scamper over there. He's going to get, I'm going to say 2 touchdowns this week. One of the, maybe both of the air. We'll see. But I love him this week.
Yeah, I'll go next. I got Cole Beasley. I'm kind of banking on John Brown still being hurt and this Bills-Chiefs game being high scoring. Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and I'm giving my man Justin Jefferson a second chance. Ooh. I just don't get how that happened. Had Alexander Madison in, got vetoed. So I'm jumping back with Justin Jefferson. I think he's just so talented. It was something like his average yards per catch was like 25 or something coming into last week. He just didn't get the deep shots. They weren't taking them for some reason against the Seattle secondary, and even if they were, it was to Adam Thielen. And guess what? You're wrapped up and get another Christmas present. You're playing Atlanta Falcons defense. So I just don't see how you can play the 2 worst secondaries in football and have 2 horrible back-to-back games. So fire him up. He's going to be one of those guys.
If we learned anything from Brandon Cooks, just get him the next week and he's going to be amazing.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm picking probably potentially borderline dude, but when I looked at wide receiver rankings, Kenny Golladay was 23rd. I think is a shame. He needs to be much higher.
Kenny Golladay?
I'm saying Kenny Golladay finds the end zone twice. 2 times.
Okay. Oh, that's big.
Okay. See, wait, before we move on, I had Marvin Jones in my DFS lineup earlier because he's going to have his 3-touchdown, 107-yard week one of these weeks. And I'm going to just put out a flyer. I think it could be this week. Obviously, Kenny G's, going to do great. They could both have a good game, but Marvin Jones is going to show up hot. Could be this week.
Dud? Ready for the duds?
Oh, yeah, my bad.
I got Gurley. I hate Todd Gurley so much.
I think we're hating him too much. I think
we probably are, but I think he's bad, so I'm going with it.
I mean, a lot of yards this week. I'm going with DJ Moore. The targets aren't there. I'm worried about him. I trying to sell him in a few places. It's not working out. DJ Moore, dud.
Robert Woods for me. It's going to be one of the 2 Rams receivers.
Ooh.
Robert Woods. So hopefully I'm wrong.
That's brave, man.
I saw you typing that in, and it brought a frown to my face. I love Robert Woods. He's got a spot in my heart. Mine are going to be a combination: Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, whoever plays. That's given the DUI situation that we touched on a little earlier. So if Lindsay is the starter, I think he'll be a bust, and if Melvin starts, I think he'll be a bust. Not excited about that offense, and really excited about the defense.
All right, let's get into jamming or our DFS. We had so many with the Patriots and blah, blah, blah last week. We decided to scrap the entire week. But before we do that, let me just say Kieran's team was phenomenal. He probably would have won some money if he had put it down. It was like Kyler and Hopkins and even Gerald Everett. Crazy. So props to you, Kieran. Yeah, keep them coming. But anyways, here's the winning lineup for the a team that's struggling. And it's Stafford, David Montgomery, James White, Hollywood Brown, Laviska Shenault Jr., Adam Thielen, Jonnu Smith, Jamison Crowder, and the Titans defense.
Where did you put all your money? I don't get it. Those players costed that much.
Adam Thielen, 7,300. Hollywood Brown, 6,500. Jamison Crowder, 6,100.
Hollywood.
Oh, I forgot Jamison Crowder's like good now. That's right. That's
Yeah.
true.
I feel
Hollywood
like it's
Brown?
still at a value.
Hollywood
Yeah,
Brown?
Hollywood Brown's
yeah, definitely.
expensive.
Yeah.
Hollywood more money than Kenny Galladay? That's not right. So for me, the leader by 3 games, so I could go 0-3, the guy in second go 3-0, and I'd still be in the lead. Not to brag. Tannehill, Mike Davis, always
You'd be tied, but
lineup.
yeah.
If you don't put Mike Davis in your lineup, you're not doing this right. David Montgomery, Adam Thielen, Kenny Galladay, double stack the Vikings, Justin Jefferson, Evan Ingram, Frank Gore. He's probably going to find the end zone somehow, and the double.
Did you run
I
out of
love
money
this
there,
double
kid?
stacking. I love that double stack of the Vikings. I'll go next. Quarterback, I told you it was coming. Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic. Running back, Mike Davis. Running back, Alexander Madison. Wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, A.J. Brown. Austin Hooper at tight end. He had something like 10 targets last week. And then I had to give up somewhere with all these big names, and I got Demir Bird coming in my flex. He's had between 6 and 8 catches 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So this is a PPR scoring format, so give me 8 catches, and I'll do just fine with the Bengals defense coming in last.
All right, I got Stafford, Aaron Jones, Mike Davis, Kenny Galladay, Fulgham, a little sleeper, Preston Williams this week,
Woo!
Cameron Bray, A-Rob, and Washington football team.
You guys got to learn how to conserve your money. I mean, if you play like that, it's just going to be all gone before you know it.
Why are you trying to teach from the bottom of the standings, bro?
And that's been another great show this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been Guys Being Dudes Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter at Dudes Football. We're available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and in your hearts. Much love. Bye-bye.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.